must get through that air shield.
We will, sir.
What's going on?
It's either the 4th of July.
Merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made. Spaceballs, the t-shirt.
Daughter of King Roland, going right past the altar, heading down the ramp and out.
Prepare ship for light speed.
No, light speed is too slow.
You're right, sir. This is...
Stop this thing!
We can't stop. It's too dangerous.
Secret entrance here.
You're gonna pay it or else.
Spaceballs isn't just a hilarious parody. It's a cult classic packed with
I can't believe you fell for the oldest trick in the book!
mind-blowing secrets and wild behind-the-scenes stories that even die-hard fans don't know. From unexpected celebrity cameos and secret filming locations to hilarious outtakes and controversial scenes cut from the final film, this 1987 sci-fi spoof is overflowing with surprises. Whether you laughed at its goofy jokes or marveled at its clever twists, prepare to have your mind blown by 20 shocking facts about Spaceballs that will change the way you see this legendary comedy forever. Number 20. Pizza the Hut was a melting disaster. Pizza Hut, the giant, oozing pizza monster from Spaceballs, was far more disgusting in real life than it looked on screen. The costume was made of rubber, melted cheese, and gallons of fake sauce that stuck to everything. Richard Carl, the actor inside, could only stay in it for a few minutes at a time before feeling like he was roasting in a burning microwave. After each scene, the crew spent hours scraping goo and sauce off the floor and the suit. Every time Carl climbed out, he was soaked in sweat and covered in slime, almost as gross as the creature itself. The smell was unforgettable, like rotten pizza baking in the sun, and so strong that some people nearly gagged. Despite the mess and misery, Pizza the Hut became an unforgettable character, combining hilarious parody with pure revolting spectacle. Years later, crew members still shiver remembering the stench and sticky chaos. Bringing that monster to life required patience, a strong stomach, and incredible endurance. But have you ever wondered how the lines of Dark Helmet sound so cute? Let's delve into the details of the actor who scripted the lines. Number 19, Dark Helmet's lines. Rick Moranis, the talented actor who played a hilariously evil Dark Helmet, didn't just recite lines from a script. He made up nearly all his dialogue right on set. That squeaky, whining voice fans love. He created it himself. The funny insults and one-liners people still quote, all improvised on the spot. Moranis said that putting on Dark Helmet's oversized costume felt like releasing every tantrum he'd ever bottled up. He channeled that wild energy into the role, blending menace with absurd comedy. The director loved his performance so much that he encouraged Moranis to keep improvising. His antics were so funny that the crew often struggled to stay serious while filming. Sometimes the camera operators laughed so hard the cameras actually shook, nearly ruining takes. Moranis' fearless creativity and quick wit turned Dark Helmet from a simple spoof villain into a truly iconic character. He didn't just act the part, he completely owned it, making Dark Helmet one of the most unforgettable figures in comedy film history. Another shocking fact about Spaceballs is the fiscal provisions that became insufficient during production. Let's delve further into the details. Number 18. The budget was slashed mid-production. Spaceballs was originally planned as a grand spectacle filled with massive space battles and special effects meant to rival Star Wars. Audiences were supposed to be dazzled by giant ships and epic laser fights. But partway through filming, the budget collapsed. Instead of giving up or making something dull, director Mel Brooks decided to fully embrace the ridiculous. If they couldn't afford a polished galaxy, they'd create the cheapest, silliest one possible and proudly show it off. That's why the spaceships look like clumsy plastic toys, and the sets resemble something built in someone's basement. The film feels like an over-the-top comedy sketch stretched into a full movie. This scrappy approach worked brilliantly. Brooks joked it was the cheapest galaxy ever put on film, and he wasn't kidding. But instead of hurting the story, the obvious low-budget look made the parody even funnier. By leaning into absurdity and refusing to take itself seriously, Spaceballs turned into a unique comedy classic. It proved that you don't need big budgets or fancy effect to create something unforgettable and make audiences laugh until they cry. One interesting fact lies in Mel Brooks' consultation before shooting the movie. Who did he consult? Let's find out. Number 17. George Lucas' permission before Mel Brooks could start filming Spaceballs. He needed permission from George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. Brooks called Lucas directly to explain that he planned to make a parody of the famous space saga. Surprisingly, Lucas agreed on one strict condition. Brooks could not make any Spaceballs merchandise. Instead of seeing this as a setback, Brooks turned the restriction into comedy gold. He filled the movie with over-the-top fake products, like Spaceballs a t-shirt, Spaceballs a breakfast cereal, and even Spaceballs a flamethrower. These pretend items weren't just quick jokes. They became beloved gags that fans still talk about today. Ironically, Lucas's ban on real merchandise led to some of the most memorable fake products in movie history. If Disney, which now owns Star Wars, ever decided to actually produce these novelty items, collectors would likely flood stores to buy them. Just imagine fans lining up for hours to snag a Spaceballs a flamethrower. This clever twist shows how one creative limitation inspired a wave of humor and lasting pop culture moments that continue to entertain audiences decades later. Have you imagined how Winnebago was able to fly? Was it an effect? Was it real? Let's dig into the details. Number 16. The Winnebago was real. Many people think the famous flying Winnebago in Spaceballs was just a model or special effect. But surprisingly, it was a real working RV. The crew took an ordinary Winnebago, bolted huge wings onto it, and actually drove it on real highways. So whenever you see it rolling along the road in the movie, that's no miniature or computer graphic. It's the genuine vehicle in motion. Only the space scenes were created later by adding backgrounds during editing. The interior shots of Lone Star and Barf flying the ship were filmed on a studio set. Director Mel Brooks proudly joked that he made the cheapest spaceship ever seen on film, and he wasn't exaggerating. Instead of spending a fortune on fancy effects, they turned a simple camper into a hilarious starship with some creative thinking and a few metal wings. This clever, low-budget approach helped make Spaceballs unforgettable. The flying Winnebago was both absurd and strangely believable, proving that movie magic doesn't always require big money. Just a willingness to try something wild, then drive it straight down the freeway for everyone to see. What did you notice about Barf, the half-dog, half-man? Was he comfortable in his outfits? Let's find out. Number 15. John Candy's costume. Beloved comedian John Candy brilliantly portrayed Barf, the half-man, half-dog psychic in Spaceballs. Wearing the Barf costume was extremely challenging. It was made of thick fur layers that trapped heat like an oven. The suit even had a remote-controlled tail and motorized ears to make Barf look more lifelike. Under the blazing studio lights, Candy would quickly become soaked with sweat and needed to be sprayed with cold water between scenes to avoid heat exhaustion. Despite the intense discomfort, he never complained and remained upbeat on set. Candy loved playing Barf and considered it one of his all-time favorite roles. He poured his humor and warmth into character, making Barf both funny and lovable. One of the movie's most memorable lines, "I'm a Mog, half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend," was completely improvised by Candy himself. His dedication, creativity, and good-natured spirit transformed Barf into an unforgettable fan favorite. Even while melting inside that furry suit, John Candy proved that great comedy and movie magic come from passion and heart. And there goes the jammed radar scene, looking so real. How did the crew arrive at it? Let's dig into the details. Number 14. The jammed radar scene was totally improvised. One of the funniest scenes in Spaceballs happens when Dark Helmet finds the radar completely jammed, but not by enemy signals. Instead, it's covered in bright red raspberry jam, dripping everywhere. Furious, he shouts the classic line, "There's only one man who would dare give me the raspberry." Surprisingly, this famous quote wasn't in the script. The actor came up with it on the spot, making the moment even more hilarious. To pull off the gag, the crew used real jam and smeared it all over the radar equipment. It wasn't just a prop. The goo was so thick and sticky that it clogged up the vents and button for real. The mess was so bad that filming had to stop, while everyone cleaned out the machinery. This unplanned bit of comic brilliance, mixed with the ridiculous use of real jam, turned a simple joke into one of the movie's most unforgettable scenes. It perfectly shows off the playful anything goes spirit of Spaceballs, where even the most serious villains can be brought down by something as silly as a jar of jam. Did you notice a character with two performers? Which character could it have been? Let's find out. Number 13. Dot Matrix had two performers of Matrix. The shiny gold robot from Spaceballs was a result of two talented women working separately to create one unforgettable character. Joan Rivers, a famous comedian, provided Dot's sharp, witty voice that gave her so much personality. Meanwhile, Laureen Yarnell, a skilled mime and performer, wore the robot suit and acted out all the movements on set. Interestingly, Joan and Laureen never met during production. Joan recorded her lines alone in the studio, while Laureen performed on location. But when their work was combined, the result was movie magic. Dot Matrix became a clever and hilarious twist on Star Wars C-3PO. Instead of a polite, stuffy droid, she was sassy, confident, and always ready, with a clever comeback. Fans adore her sparkling appearance, funny dialogue, and bold attitude. Thanks to Joan and Laureen's unique contributions, wasn't just a machine. She felt like a real character bursting with life. Their collaboration proved that creativity and teamwork can turn even a robot into an icon. Today, that Matrix is remembered as one of cinema's most entertaining and beloved robots. A weird fact is a scene that was a total joke about studio executives. Which scene is that? What prompted the idea? Let's dive into the details. Number 12. Combing the desert, studio executives constantly pressed Mel Brooks to pack even more visual jokes into his film. They wanted big, bold gags that would grab the audience's attention. To meet their demands, Brooks dreamed up what might be the most literal sight gag ever put on screen. A group of soldiers actually combing the desert with massive plastic combs. Imagine it. These serious-looking troops trudging across the endless sand, dragging enormous combs behind them, as if they were searching for lice in the world's largest sandbox. It was absurd, hilarious, and unforgettable. However, filming this ridiculous scene wasn't all smooth sailing. During one take, one of the oversized combs cracked under the strain. Instead of scrapping it, the crew quickly taped it back together so they could keep rolling. The breakage didn't ruin the moment. In fact, it added to the charm of the scene. When audiences finally saw it, they couldn't stop laughing. The image of soldiers methodically combing the desert was so unexpected and silly that it instantly stuck in people's minds. Over the years, this clever gag has become one of the most quoted and celebrated moments from the film. Brooks's ability to take a simple phrase, combing the desert, and turn it into a giant, living cartoon shows why his humor has stood the test of time. It's proof that sometimes the simplest, most literal idea can become the most iconic joke of all. Did you know that the film did not get a smashing success as it got to the market? When was Remarkable recorded? Let's dig into the details. Number 11. A modest beginning. When Spaceballs first hit theaters back in 1987, it didn't exactly set the world on fire. Made with a budget of $22.7 million, the movie earned about $38 million in the U.S., which was respectable but far from a smashing success. Critics couldn't agree on what to make of it. Some praised the film for its clever humor and smart parodies of popular sci-fi movies like Star Wars, while others brushed it off as silly, childish entertainment. Spaceballs gained a devoted fan base after its VHS release and frequent cable TV airings. People who missed it in theaters discovered its silly humor and catchy quotes at home. Word spread quickly, and its playful spirit turned it into a beloved cult classic over time. As the years went by, this offbeat comedy grew more popular, becoming something much bigger than anyone expected. It transformed from a modest box office performer into a beloved cult classic that sci-fi buffs and comedy fans alike hold close to their hearts. Today, Spaceballs is celebrated as a hilarious spoof that never takes itself too seriously, proving that sometimes a movie doesn't have to be an instant hit to leave a lasting impact. Another shocking fact that would interest you is the character that blends two Star Wars heroes. Who is this character? Let's find out. Number 10. Lone Star. The character of Lone Star was cleverly created as a funny blend of two of Star Wars' most famous heroes, Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. You can see this mashup in how he looks and behaves. For example, Lone Star wears a vest similar to Han Solo's cool smuggler outfit, But at the same time, he carries the wide-eyed optimism and innocence of Luke Skywalker, the young farm boy who dreams of adventure. This mix of traits makes Lone Star both familiar and hilarious, as fans can instantly recognize the parts he borrows from each character. However, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, had one important concern. He didn't want Lone Star to resemble Han Solo so closely that people would think it was an outright copy. To avoid this problem, Mel Brooks, the mastermind behind Spaceballs, decided to tweak Lone Star's style. Instead of only dressing him in Han Solo's gear, Brooks borrowed inspiration from another famous Harrison Ford role, Indiana Jones. That's why Lone Star sometimes wears a rugged leather jacket and is more of an adventurous explorer vibe. This clever costume choice added an extra layer of parody. It not only poked fun at Star Wars, but also nodded Indiana Jones, giving the audience more reasons to laugh. The result was a unique character who feels like a tribute to Harrison Ford's iconic heroes while still standing out in his own right. Interestingly, another mind-blowing fact is about the movie producer playing some roles in his movie. Let's delve into the details. Number 9. Mel Brooks' roles. Mel Brooks wasn't content with simply sitting behind the camera directing Spaceballs. He dove right into the action by stepping into not one, but two hilarious roles: the bumbling President Scroob and the wise, parody-loving Yogurt. Transforming into Yogurt was no small feat. The special makeup was thick, hot, and so heavy that Brooks could barely stand to wear it for more than a few hours at a stretch. Imagine layers of latex and paint clinging to your face, making it hard to breathe or move comfortably. Despite how exhausting and claustrophobic it was, Brooks never thought about handing the part to someone else. Why would he put himself through such discomfort? Because he knew that nobody else could bring Yogurt's ridiculous charm to life quite the way he envisioned. He wanted every line, every gag, and every silly moment to land exactly right. For Brooks, comedy was serious business. Even the tiniest jokes mattered, and he believed that delivering them personally was the only way to guarantee they would hit the mark. This dedication to perfection is part of why Spaceballs remains such a beloved classic. Brooks poured his heart into every aspect, from directing epic spaceship scenes to sweating under layers of makeup just to get a laugh. His commitment proved that when a creator is willing to go the extra mile, even if it means hours of discomfort, the results can be unforgettable. Could you ever have imagined that the movie's theme music was rushed? Let's talk about the details. Number 8. The theme song, the unforgettable Spaceballs theme song, the one that instantly makes fans smile, almost never existed. In fact, it wasn't part of the plan while the movie was being filmed. Only after the entire film was wrapped up did director Mel Brooks realize something was missing. He wanted a fun, silly tune to capture the ridiculous spirit of the movie. So he turned to his trusted composer, John Morris, and gave him an unusual challenge: come up with a catchy theme song in just a few days. Morris didn't have much time, but he embraced the idea. Instead of hiring a real band, they gathered a group of studio musicians to pretend to be a wacky rock group. This fake band recorded the music, while Brooks and Morris kept rewriting the lyrics over and over again, trying to squeeze in last-minute jokes that matched the movie's outrageous humor. The song was hastily improvised, yet its playful, silly vibe became a highlight of Spaceballs. Though nearly an afterthought, it perfectly matched the film's parody and slapstick style. This spontaneous, carefree spirit is a big reason fans still love Spaceballs today. Another weird scene in the movie was that which featured some of the actors watching Spaceballs during production. How did it go? Let's find out. Number 7. Watching Spaceballs and Spaceballs, do you recall that unforgettable moment in Spaceballs when the characters actually sit down and watch Spaceballs, the movie, right there inside the movie itself? It's a scene so unusual and self-aware that it still makes audiences do a double take. At the time, the movie studio behind Spaceballs was deeply worried. Executives believed viewers would be totally baffled by the idea of a film watching itself. They insisted the scene was far too confusing and pushed hard to have it completely removed from the final cut. But Mel Brooks, the brilliant mind who created Spaceballs, stood his ground. He knew this movie within a movie gag was something special. Brooks was determined to keep it because he understood how it shattered the normal rules of storytelling in a hilarious way. That scene has become legendary for breaking the fourth wall and cleverly reminding viewers it was fiction. Often called meta, it made audiences feel part of the joke. Over time, it inspired many filmmakers to use similar techniques. Today, film schools teach it as a brilliant example of creative storytelling, proving that what once seemed odd is now a milestone in comedy and cinema history. Spaceball is not the first of the Star Wars series. This is a fact many don't know. Let's dive into the details. Number 6. Hardware wars long before Spaceballs blasted into theaters. A small, daring project called Hardware Wars was already poking fun at Star Wars. In 1977, Ernie Fossilius, an imaginative amateur filmmaker, wondered, what if you could parody the galaxy's biggest space saga using just common household junk? With just $8,000, Fossilius converted an old laundromat into a studio, using toasters as spaceships and tinfoil as robot armor. Despite the absurd homemade props, his low-budget parody delighted audiences and proved that creativity could outshine expensive special effects. Despite its shoestring budget and homemade look, Hardware Wars exploded into a surprising success, raking in around $500,000. Viewers couldn't get enough of its silly charm. Even George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, called it a cute little film, which was quite the compliment. Fossilius never imagined that his low-budget parody would spark a wave of sci-fi spoofs for decades to come. His inventive take proved you don't need millions to make people laugh. Sometimes, all it takes is creativity and a toaster on a string. Shockingly, one of the actresses faced her most challenging scenes on set. Who is she? What happened? Let's delve into the details. Number 5. Daphne Zuniga and the yogurt scene. Daphne Zuniga, the talented actress behind the unforgettable Princess Vespa in Spaceballs, had endured one of the most uncomfortable scenes of her career. In that memorable moment, she was required to plunge face first into an enormous tub filled with yogurt. At first, the yogurt was merely cold and a little sour smelling, which was unpleasant enough. But as they shot the scene over and over again, take after take, the yogurt became thicker, stickier, and much smellier. By the time they wrapped filming that day, it had turned into a slimy, disgusting mess that reeked like spoiled food forgotten in the back of the fridge. Every time Daphne came up for air, she was covered in goo that clung to her hair, face, and costume. Despite the gross ordeal, she never broke character. She stayed professional, determined to give the director exactly what he needed to make the scene work. The experience scarred Daphne so much that she avoided yogurt for years, as its smell and texture brought back memories of the foul tub on set. Despite her disgust, her commitment paid off. Her portrayal of Princess Vespa became iconic, showing that great performances often demand messy sacrifices. Another fact about this movie is the teased sequel that has been expected for decades. What about it? Let's find out. Number 4. The sequel to film Spaceballs wraps up with a hilarious final gag, teasing audiences with the idea of a follow-up called Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. This tongue-in-cheek title perfectly summed up the film's playful spirit and love for poking fun at Hollywood's obsession with sequels. Mel Brooks, the creator and star of Spaceballs, often said he would only consider making the sequel if Rick Moranis, who brilliantly played the villainous Dark Helmet, agreed to come back. But Moranis chose to step away from acting altogether, so he could devote his time to raising his children. Because of his heartfelt decision, the sequel everyone hoped for never became reality. Even so, the dream of more Spaceballs has never truly died. Over the years, there have been persistent whispers about a possible reboot, an animated television series, and even a fresh Netflix adaptation. Every now and then, headlines will pop up hinting that something new might be in the works, stirring excitement among the loyal fans. To this day, people still passionately ask Brooks to revive the galaxy of Spaceballs. Whether it's through social media campaigns, fan letters, or nostalgic interviews, the calls for a return haven't slowed down. The enduring love for the space parody proves that some comedies are simply too special to fade away quietly. Another fact that reflects a remarkable moment is the scene where imposters were used. Let's dive into the details of the scene. Number 3. The stunt doubles. When the brave heroes are captured and dragged before the guards, you expect a tense moment. But instead, the guards squint and shout, "These aren't them. These are their stunt doubles." Suddenly, the camera cuts to a hilarious sight. Four obvious imposters standing awkwardly in place of the real characters. They're wearing ridiculous wigs that look like they were bought at a cheap costume shop, plus oversized, cartoonish fake mustaches that practically scream phony. This moment is pure comedy gold because it breaks the illusion in the most unexpected way. The audience can't help but burst into laughter at how absurd the stunt doubles look. You instantly realize that the film is poking fun at itself and all the action movies that try so hard to hide their stunt performers. Later on, one of the stunt women who played one of the doubles admitted she had mixed feelings about the scene. She felt honored that her moment on screen got such a big reaction, but also a bit embarrassed that people were laughing so hard at her face rather than admiring her athletic stunts. Still, she understood it was all part of the movie's clever humor. The scene not only made fun of action cliches, but also gave a hard-working stunt team a moment in the spotlight, just in the most ridiculous way possible. But did you know that one of the characters played a scene he had once done in another movie? Who was it? Let's dig into the details. Number 2. John Hurt recreated his death scene from Alien. One of the most unforgettable and hilarious scenes in Spaceballs happens when the legendary actor John Hurt shows up playing himself. Fans immediately recognize a nod to Alien, the famous sci-fi horror movie where Hurt's character suffers a shocking fate of having a monstrous alien rip its way out of his chest. But in Spaceballs, director Mel Brooks takes this terrifying moment and flips it into pure comedy. Instead of a deadly alien parasite, the thing bursting from Hurt's chest is a result of some truly awful diner food, an over-the-top joke that leaves everyone roaring with laughter. Getting Hurt to agree to spoof his own iconic scene was an easy feat, however. Brooks had a special connection with him. Years earlier, he had produced The Elephant Man, a powerful film that showcased Hurt's incredible talent and earned him an Academy Award nomination. That bond helped Brooks persuade Hurt to return to the role in such a silly, unexpected way. This clever twist doesn't just parody a classic movie. It also shows how willing Hurt was to poke fun at himself, making the moment even more memorable and delightful for fans of both films. Lastly, despite all odds, Spaceballs remains Mel Brooks' most sought after. How is this so? Let's zoom into the details. Number 1. Mel Brooks' most requested movie even now. After so many years, Mel Brooks says Spaceballs is the movie that fans never stop talking about. Everywhere he goes, people come up to share their love for this hilarious sci-fi parody. Some have even named their dogs Barf, after John Candy's half-man, half-dog character, or worn a giant dark helmet costume. Yes, even to their own weddings. The passion for this film goes far beyond just watching it. As a special memento, every lead actor was given their very own Schwartz ring, the magical ring featured in the story. It wasn't just a cheap prop. It was a cherished keepsake that symbolized the fun and creativity that went into making the movie. Rick Moranis, who played the unforgettable Dark Helmet, still has his Schwartz ring safely tucked away. Sometimes, when he attends fan conventions, he slips it onto his finger again, delighting crowds who can't believe they're seeing a piece of Spaceballs history up close. It's proof that Spaceballs isn't just a movie. It's a cult legend that continues to inspire laughter, cosplay, and devotion across generations. So, what do you think about the mind-blowing facts of Spaceballs? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.